This is Victor Schoenbach. Today is Friday, December the 13th, 2019. And I'm here with Dr. Barbara Pullen-Smith, who is the founding director, among other things, of the North Carolina Office of Minority Health and Health Disparities, plus many other things that we'll be talking about. And we're here in her lovely home in Garner, North Carolina. So, Barbara, I'm so grateful to you for doing this interview.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. For years.
Thank you, Vic. This is my honor. Absolutely. So I'm excited and looking forward to just chatting with you a little bit.
And as you know, I'm going to ask you about where were you born, who were your parents, What was it like growing up?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I was born in Littleton, North Carolina, and I'm the youngest of 5 children. And my mother was a strong woman because my father ended up passing away unexpectedly when I was a baby. I was 6 weeks old, and my mother had 5 children ages 10 through 6 weeks, and she kept us all together, and she really was just an amazing woman of faith. And so her mantra was, with the help of the Lord. That's what she would say, that we could do it with the help of the Lord. And so that's really what we lived by. She was an avid reader, and so education was really, really important to her. And so she made sure that all 5 of us went to college. So that was growing up in northeastern North Carolina. It's a little town very close to the Virginia border. Mm-hmm.
Sounds like your mom was a superwoman.
She absolutely was a superwoman, and I definitely, anytime I get discouraged about life and things, I often think about her and her strength and how we never went without the basics. We never had everything we wanted, but we always had everything we needed. And I just, to this day, I can't even understand how she did that. Mama went back to school she finished high school before she got married, but she went back to the community college, and she got several certificates, but the one that she was most proud of was she was a licensed practical nurse. So
wow.
She's the one who really helped me to have that compassion and the whole focus on health. I knew that there was something really important about that, because as a child, for example, she worked at nursing homes and that kind of thing. And she was so compassionate that she'd work all week, and then on Sunday afternoons after church, sometimes she would take me with her back to the nursing home to visit patients who did not have family members who came to visit them. And so that's the kind of person that she was in the community, just really a missionary at heart. And so that's the model. That's what I saw.
Wow.
Growing up. And Mama was really smart. She was really smart in math. And so she did taxes for people. So every year she did taxes. I mean, literally Mama did taxes until she passed it at age 79, so she was still doing taxes at that age. And so that was always amazing. And the other thing that I loved about her was, except her sweet, in addition to her sweet potato pies, she was that person in the community, because a lot of people knew that she could read and had, was really smart, and they had not finished school necessarily, so they trusted her to come with their mail and help them understand what the communication was about. So that was our home, so people were constantly there, and a lot of people really depended on her to help them even understand basic business. Yeah.
Wow. And what was your father before he passed?
My father worked in we called it pulpwood. So he was a logger. He cut down logs and those kinds of things. So he was a hard worker. But the thing that really I remember, that my mom told me about Dad, that really also, it all comes back to health for me. So my father had an accident when he was a child, apparently, and he fell and injured his head. And it was never treated because going to the doctors, having access to health care was just not an option
This was
for
Eastern North
him
Carolina
in
when they brought it up?
Eastern North Carolina. So it was never treated. And so, so he ended up having problems with his head, severe headaches, and eventually I'm not sure if it was if he passed from a stroke or something, but I do know that it was related to that injury. And so at age 39, my father passed away and Mama was left with 5 children. Yeah, but you know, we made it. And we made it because we had great support from the community, and have uncles, you know, who really were there for us. My dad's brother, Uncle Arnett Manley, for sure, he was like the uncle that everybody loved. So, yeah.
And this is Littleton?
This is all in Littleton, North Carolina. Not Lillington, Littleton. Near Gaston Lake, right there at the Virginia border.
And what years would these have been?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I guess I was born in '59, so go ahead and tell my age. And and so this, I guess it would have been, I don't know, in the 60s. Is mainly, yeah, 60s, because in the I finished high school in '77, so.
So you were, that was the civil rights movement. You weren't in school, I guess, when the schools were integrated. That was before officially integrated.
You know what's interesting? My 4th grade year, I was selected to be a part of a pilot, in which some of the black kids were actually bused to the white school, the majority white school. And so in the 4th grade, I was a part of that test pilot. And so I can remember my mom saying, "You're going to do fine," because I didn't want to go. I was like, "Mom, I want to be with my friends." And she's like, "You go." And she said that you're not better than anyone else, but no one is better than you. That's a life lesson that I always knew, because, you know, of course we believe everything our mom say, right? So that's what she told me. And the 4th grade experience was interesting now, because it was at Littleton High School at that time when we had the high school open. And so we had a trailer. So the black kids were in, the 4th grade kids were in a trailer outside the school. And the other 4th grade class had the classroom inside the building.
So you were bused to the Littleton High School, but you were kept in a segregated class.
In a segregated class. But what was amazing was in the white class for the 4th graders, that there was one little black girl, but she was very fair, and so she could really pass. But all the rest of us were in Miss Robinson's classroom, in the trailer, just as happy as we could be. So the first experience for me in terms of really integration was on the playground. Not even in the cafeteria, because you know you sit with your class.
Right.
But on the playground. So that's when I got to know some of the other white kids. And of course we later became friends. So my 5th grade year, I went back to my elementary school, and then, because it was just a test to see how we could do together. And then
this was like 1969.
It had to be around that time, yeah, because
wow.
So then I ended up going back to the predominantly white high school for 9th grade, I think it was, and ended up, by the time I was in the 11th grade, they closed our high school and we were bused then to Warren County. So I ended up graduating from John Graham High School in Warren County. So that was the other major shift for me. So all of my friends, half of us we lived on the countryside, out in the country. So we were bused to Warrington. And the kids who were in the city limits of Littleton, they were bused to school near Roanoke Rapids.
So
yeah.
Was the Warrington High School integrated?
Yes, very much so.
Really integrated?
Yes, very much so.
Good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so that experience was still great because I ended up I played basketball during high school. And so it was really strange to be going to school with our rivals. But I made the team. So that was pretty fun.
That's great.
Oh yeah.
So you went to UNC, and you were going to tell me how you got to UNC.
How I got to
What led you
UNC. Okay, so I did well in high school, and so I was grateful I had different, I was looking at different options. And my older sister, Emma, who's like 6 years older than me, she had gone to UNC Chapel Hill. And so I told her, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, I want to apply to Howard University. And this is what she said verbatim. She says, you are too country to go to Howard University. You need to go someplace where there's grass and trees. And honestly, that's why I followed her to UNC Chapel Hill. And she was absolutely amazing. Emma was one of the smartest people I know, Emma Pullen, I'm telling you. And so she had gone to Governor's Moorhead School, and she was a journalism major, got scholarships to go to Carolina. So for her, it was, of course, a great option.
And that must have been in the early years of Carolina's integration, right? Because she would have gone 6 years before you.
Absolutely.
It would have been like 71.
Yes, that's right.
And
That's right, yeah. So she was very much, very active with the Black student movement, everything, because she was a journalist major, and so I have articles from some of the things she did while she was there in journalism school, and she worked with the newspaper.
now, journalism, can you be an undergraduate and be a journalist?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, she was an undergrad major, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And so that's how I ended up at Carolina, though, was because of my sister Emma.
Do you want to say anything more about her, or what she did when she was at school, or what she did afterwards? Or?
Oh wow, I'm telling you, really proud of just her accomplishments. When she left Carolina, she actually went to DC to work for the Washington Post. She did that for a while, and then she ended up with the LA Times, and so that's how she ended up in California. And she stayed with the paper for a while, but her heart was always in producing, and she was involved with so much. And I know she felt like she never really got to achieve all the things she wanted to before she passed away at a very young age of 52 from breast cancer. Mm-hmm. But I was so proud of all that she was able to accomplish, and including she was the screenwriter for it was a play that turned into a movie for PBS, and The Children Shall Lead. And even now, that movie is actually played during Black History Month, and you can YouTube it. And so her legacy lives on. She did a lot of work with the NAACP Image Award each year. And it was nothing for her to be at Cannes Film Festivals, and she just was involved with all of that. And so a lot of my experience with travel was through her. And she'd always bring me back something, just a little token so I can remember her travels.
So celebrity runs in your family.
Well, thank you. I like that.
So
well, yeah, she was amazing.
Brothers and sisters also?
I'm the youngest of 5.
5?
Yes.
Oh, of course.
Yes, no, that's fine. I'm the youngest of 5. And as I said, all of us went to college. I mean, so Mom really understood that while we had to struggle because there were very few opportunities, she pretty much instilled in us at an early age, you've got to leave here in order to live well, because you can live well if you get a good education. And so that was it.
Do you want to say anything about what your other siblings did? Or
Oh, sure. So I'm the youngest. My brother, who is still working with the state of North Carolina now, but he's an engineer. He finished at NC State. My sister Emma, of course, was UNC Chapel Hill. and my sister Maxine, and she also passed away in 2017, unfortunately. But she finished at King's Business School here in Raleigh, and she was a military wife, so they lived in other countries and all of that. So she had that experience, which I loved that too. And then my oldest sister finished at Norfolk State University in sociology, and so she's done a variety of work, including working with Girl Scouts in banking. She's done, she was a phlebotomist. She's done HIV/AIDS work. She's done a whole lot of things in her career as well.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Quite a family.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell me about UNC. So you got to UNC.
I got to UNC, and the first thing was just the culture shock, right? Because the university was bigger than my whole town, of course. And so just that adjustment was really interesting. And when I got there, I always knew I wanted to do something in health because of the connection with my dad's early death. And I was like, you know what? People should have access to doctors. And that's about all I knew at that point. But and of course with my mom and her being a nurse, I said, I'm going to be a nurse. So I went to Carolina thinking, just sure I was going to be a nurse. And so I guess it was around my sophomore year, someone, I don't remember who advised me, but they were like, if you think you want to go into nursing, it's very competitive, da-da-da-da. But to be sure, volunteer at the hospital. And I did. Volunteered, I was a little patient educator, and it only took me a very short time, Vic, to really understand and realize that was not for me. I really just figured out that that's not necessarily what I wanted to do. But I knew I wanted to do something in health, and so I happened to be talking to someone who was, at that time, a graduate student in the School of Public Health.
Oh, who was that?
Rob, I can't remember Rob's last name.
What department was he in? Do you remember that?
I can't remember, but I just remember it was someone in public health, and he said, I tell you what, if you think you want to do something in health, go talk to Dr. John Hatch. I went to talk to Dr. John Hatch, and he started talking about prevention. He started talking about population health and how you can improve the health of a whole community. I was like, that's it. And that's all I needed to know. That was about, so I knew I had to apply and all of that, so I did apply and was accepted my junior year. And so that's how I ended up getting into public health. The back door. It really was the back door.
I don't know why it's the back door.
But it was good for me.
John Hatch was
yeah, he was the front door, right? I have to think about it like that.
And what year was that?
That had to be, I started in 81, 82, so 83?
83?
No, because I hadn't finished. 77, 88, 77, had to be about 80. Because I finished in 81. So it had to be 79. Because it was a 2-year program, yeah.
So tell me about people whom you met at the School of Public Health.
Oh my goodness.
You remember?
Okay, so for sure, of course I remember Harriet Barr and just her leadership within the university, within the programs there.
I think she was leading the undergraduate.
I think she was.
BSPH then.
Yeah, I think she was, and that's what I have, a BSPH. And so I also remember Dr. Godfrey Hochbaum. Mm-hmm. Right. Oh yeah, Dr. Godfrey. I remember his course because I remember him talking about helping people to move from a position of that fatalistic approach to health, and how you really that we have to help people in the community understand that just because of a family history, just because your mother had diabetes, did not necessarily mean you had to have it, and that there were some things that you could do. Mm-hmm. And so I just remember him very distinctly. And of course, everybody loves Dean Bill Small. Of course, he was the guy, the go-to guy for many of us as black students in the program. because that whole environment was just very new. But the one thing I did appreciate about the School of Public Health was how it embraced diversity. And so I always felt like I belonged there. I really did. Now, in some of the courses, I had challenges, like in the epidemiology, had to get tutors, but that was available to us. And so I definitely appreciated that. One of course, I have to acknowledge just some of the foundation training I got through Ethel Jackson, my beloved Ethel Jackson. I loved her course because she put us out there in the community and had us to actually talk to people and had us to really understand how you apply the principles that you learn in the classroom, how you apply them in the real world, and how it usually doesn't line up. But you learn to adjust, and you learn how to help them anyway, because you figure out, you start with where they are, and you move from there. So you go in with your little neat agenda, but the agenda has to be tailored to where they are. You can still get it, but you may have to work a little bit. And I learned so many valuable lessons from that course with Ethel. So yeah, she's definitely one of my favorites.
I'm really sorry I didn't know you then.
Thank you.
Godfrey Hopbaum was my advisor when I was in health education.
Oh, wow.
6-7 years before then.
Okay.
Or 8 years, I guess it was.
Mm-hmm.
And Ethel Jean Jackson was a classmate.
Oh, wow.
And I learned so much from Ethel Jean.
Yeah.
About the South, about civil rights, about North Chapel Hill, about black-white relations and stuff, which coming from the North, I was just not familiar with.
Yeah. Well, I think that she just brought the heart for the work, and she could get you straight with so much love that you couldn't be offended. She would tell the truth. Yes,
all
yeah.
the group students in my master's program, she was the class mother.
And I love that. I absolutely love that, and I love that legacy, because yes, she poured into us, and she really laid a foundation that by the time I left there, I knew what to do in the community. I really did know what to do. So I just appreciated her. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those are just some of the people who stand out.
And so, was Laverne Reed part of your educational experience then, or you met her later?
I met her later.
Because she was in that class with Ethel Jean Jackson back in 1972 that I was in.
Okay, so I don't know if I even knew that, because now I know how I was connected to Laverne. So when it was time for me to do my internship, Ethel actually was the one who recommended that I apply to do the internship with the Area Health Education Center, AHEC, with Margaret Pollard, and that's when I first met Laverne Reed.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and so they both, and it was so powerful for me just to see two black females in leadership. Oh my goodness. They really took my hand and really taught me just some of the basics about how you lead, how you run programs, and so that was just really powerful. And so Margaret, for example, had me involved with organizing the very first Strengthening the Black Family Conference here in Wake County, and had me on the radio. I mean, we did interviews. Wow. And we would meet with community leaders, and it wasn't until years later that I realized that Margaret had me with the leaders in Wake County.
Straight out of your undergraduate program.
It was in my undergraduate program. I didn't know enough to be nervous about it. I just was like, okay, Margaret, whatever you need for me to do. And again, Margaret really just kind of took what Ethel did and continued that whole learning process, because again, it was all about taking what you've learned in the classroom and applying it to real people in real communities and how you can have an impact. Yeah, without them having to conform to you, you conform to them. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
So, was there anything else that you did during your undergraduate last years? I know you mentioned you worked with the Minority Health Conference, which had just started in
Oh, right, yeah.
1977.
Thank you for reminding me of that because, and again, that was a Deanville Small. I'm not even sure how I got invited to come to a meeting, but I was really glad to be in the room. I was so intimidated because, all the other students were upper class, or I think upper class men and women, but I do believe that may have been the second Minority Health Conference, but I remember being in the room and just hearing how they put it together. And then, of course, I had a very small role to help volunteer on the day of the conference as well. But yeah, I remember the very first Minority Health the Minority Health Conference.
Was it in Rosenau Auditorium?
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yes.
Do you remember how big it was?
I don't remember. I don't remember it being completely full, but I do remember it was quite a few people there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because there's some pictures of very early ones, and I'm not sure if the pictures are of the conference or of a breakout session. Because they were in a classroom.
Okay.
One of the old pictures that Bill Small has given us.
Mm-hmm.
But not too many years later, Rosenau Auditorium was full, totally full.
Absolutely.
So when you worked with the General Baptist State Convention, you mentioned, as we were talking beforehand, about Eva Salber.
Yeah.
Anything, you didn't meet her, did you?
I'd never met her. I just, certainly we were familiar with her work. In Ethel's class, of course, is when we talked about just the model of lay health advisors. And so when I started with the General Baptist State Convention, that was the job. The job was to develop a network of lay health advisors in black churches throughout the Baptist Church network in North Carolina. And so we would literally go in and work with the pastors to identify some of their leaders, natural leaders, and then we'd go in and we'd do training. And it was a whole team of people that would come in and help with the training. And so we taught them some basics on taking blood pressures, for example, a little bit of information about diabetes and the importance of diabetes management, and the importance of course, managing hypertension, and just some basic education, but gave them enough training that, and they, out of that training, they received a certificate. And so what really blessed me was when we were able to go back to my hometown area, and we did a lay health advisor training with a church. And one of the proudest moments I can remember is when my mother went through the training and she was certified as a lay health advisor for the community. She was already doing the work.
Okay, was she already an LPN or not yet?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she was already doing the work, but it just was really special that she got that certificate, and her baby was a part of that program.
I'm sure she was thrilled. I'm sure
I was too, and of course, that work was under Curtis Jackson, Ethel Jackson's husband. And so when I was just nurtured. I went from Ethel Jackson to Margaret Pollard and Laverne Reed to Curtis Jackson. So the Jackson family obviously has really been very influential in my career. And we have established just a lifelong relationship, friendship, family relationship. So they are very special to me. But yeah, Curtis was really passionate about the work and did a great job of building bridges and really opening the door for us, because he understood the politics of the General Baptist State Convention. I didn't understand all that. I was just to do the work. And then he also understood the politics of the church. And so he worked through all of that. So by the time we got there, the doors were open, people were excited and ready, and we just had to go in and do the training. So it was really, really cool. But yeah, the connection, I wanted to make sure that I shared the connection with the Jackson family all of these years and in my careers.
You know, I have an interview with Curtis Jackson online now.
I saw that. Yes, I did. I definitely looked at that, and I shared it with his daughter so that so that she could share it with her siblings.
Now, did John Hatch create that network, or the General Baptist State Convention, the Lay Health Advisor Program, or?
Well, I can tell you this. I've talked with Dr. Hatch. By the time I got into the program, he was on a sabbatical.
Oh, right.
So I never got to take a course with him. But once we started working with the General Baptist State Convention, that's when I got to really meet Dr. Hatch and to learn from him directly. So he was very much intimately involved with the creation of that program, yes.
And was Anita Holmes involved then, or not yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yep, not yet. Yeah, I did not know her back then.
So, anybody else to mention, or we'll move on to
We can move
Hot
on. Yeah.
Atlanta?
We can move
So
on.
tell me about Hot Atlanta. I had not heard of that before.
So, so I was with the General Baptist State Convention, and I was working alongside Regina Young, who was who had received her master's from UNC Chapel Hill in the public health program. And we were doing the exact same work with lay health advisors. And I don't know what really triggered this conversation, but one day Regina said, "Barbara, you know that the only reason I make more money than you is because I have a master's degree." And I was like, "Get out. For real?" And she's like, "Yes." That was really the impetus for me to go back. It really was. I was like, "What?" So I ended up applying to, and I honestly did not want to go back to Chapel Hill. In all honesty, I didn't.
Why was that?
I wanted a new experience. 4 years was good, you know? But I said I wanted a new adventure, and so I really did venture out and applied and was accepted in the program at Emory University. So that's when I headed to Hot Atlanta.
And why do they call it Hot Atlanta? I've
I
never
don't
heard
know.
that before.
I just know it's called that. I don't know. I probably don't want to know, to be honest.
Okay.
Hey Vic, I probably don't want to know why they call it Hot Atlanta, but it was a good experience there, so I ended up my master's in public health with a concentration in health administration, because my undergrad was in health education, and so I knew about how to work with programs and with people and communities, but I wanted the health administration, so I knew how to run programs and to influence policy. So that was kind of my logic for focusing on health administration.
And you'd met a young man then, I think, hadn't you?
Yes, I had.
Where did you meet him?
Keith and I met in Greensboro, North Carolina, in 1981. I was trying to remember. It was right after I finished. Actually, was visiting my girlfriend, Rochelle Riley,